Recently on the internet, there's been a lot of discussion around genital preferences and transphobia. In this video, I'm going to use the word cissexism instead of transphobia, but they're really similar words.
Hello everyone, so we are back in cleaning the litter box, and Dennis has a lot of more shit for us. So, transphobia is supposedly an irrational fear, because that's what phobia means, an irrational, an involuntary fear of something. So, that doesn't really mean what you think it means, Dennis. And cissexism, because cis is just a pejorative word that people like yourself invented to describe normal people. You know, those 99.7% of all humans on Earth. So no, those words mean nothing then.
At its most basic, cissexism means prejudice or discrimination against transgender people. So what's been happening is that some people are making the argument that it's not cissexist at all to only be attracted to people with one kind of genitals. For example, these people might argue that being attracted to only women with vaginas in no way negatively affects trans people.
People have the right to be attracted to whatever they want to be attracted with. That's the old thing. Like, remember when religious people used to say to gays that they cannot be attracted to dick? Well, you're doing the same thing, Dennis. People are attracted to whatever they are attracted. And of course, the vast majority of people are normally heterosexual, and then a small percentage are homosexual. And normally they are homosexual or heterosexual from people that are really from that gender. So, trans people, it's sad, but it has to be said, will have a hard time finding someone to love because most people will not want to date a fake woman or a fake man. Because you do understand that the main reason we fall in love with another human being is to procreate, is to reproduce. All the things that we call love and all those beautiful things are a side effect of our instinct to mate.
On the other hand, I would argue that it's more complicated than that. We all have our implicit biases built into our preferences, and gender isn't as simple as just the genitals you have.
It is as simple as the genitals you have. In reality, what determines your gender, of course, is your sexual chromosomes, but we accept sexual transitions like the ones caused by gender dysphoria as members of the other gender.
But after I say that, I usually get a bunch of blatantly cis-sexist responses, so I thought I'd address all of those responses at once.
This should be good.
Number 1, you're being homophobic. In this argument, I often get accused of homophobia, lesbophobia, or lesbian erasure by lesbians who believe that I'm trying to change their sexual orientation or identity. They say that my language sounds a lot like a dude who tried to turn them straight or like conversion therapy. Those responses are rooted in cis-sexism. This is because I'm not telling lesbians that they can't be lesbians. If you're a woman who only likes women, go ahead, identify as a lesbian. But some women have penises, and if the fact that some lesbians might be attracted to those women offends you, it's because you don't think trans women are real women.
Okay, there's a lot of things to unpack here. First, of course they're correct, because without a binary scale, you don't have heterosexuality or homosexuality. Being gay makes no sense outside of the binary scale. That's just a fact. Then you go on again at cis, gender, cis normativity. That's bullcrap. There's nothing to do, again, just being normal. It's 99.7% of the human population. It's reality. And now for trans women. Trans women need to be diagnosed by a doctor that diagnoses gender dysphoria. They will start hormonal treatment so that their body starts transitioning to a female body. Then they start needing to do the sex change operation to transition to a woman. Until you start doing all those procedures, of course they are not even trans women, much less a woman. And biologically, they will never be a woman because they are unable to reproduce and they don't have XX chromosomes.
Number 2, you're upholding rape culture. This is honestly the worst response that I've heard and probably the most cis-sexist one. That's because trans women have a long history of being accused of being rapists by cis women. It's the logic behind bathroom bills that prevent trans women from using the right bathroom. It's why some cis women are terrified of the idea of sharing a locker room with a trans woman. This is a very common tactic used by anti-trans folks to discredit trans women as just men trying to invade women's spaces so they can rape.
When I saw the headline, I was almost, finally a point that maybe I'll agree with, and then it came crashing down. Dennis, this is the problem when you create the non-binary bullshit and the gender is fluid bullshit, because then you are actually hurting real trans people, because real trans people are diagnosed by doctors, they do the operations, and they should be able to go to the bathroom that matches their genitals, the new genitals that they got. But because of this bullshit that people can just identify with a gender, then what you create is that people, of course, abuse it. And yes, Dennis, there's been a lot of attacks of people that are abused at those type of laws to go into women's bathrooms and to molest them and to sexually assault them. Real trans people, of course, they should use the bathroom that their new genitals match, Dennis. But non-binary bullshit, that thing of, oh, now I'm a woman, now I'm a man, now I'm airplane. That shit does not stick on bathrooms, Dennis. Because yes, sexual predators will abuse that thing. They are already abusing those kind of flaws.
Even if this is not your intention when bringing this up, this is what you are implying, and it is where this argument comes from. Suggesting that trans women are rapists for wanting to be fully recognized as women is extremely harmful. And I should note that I'm not saying you have to do anything without consent. I'm a big fan of affirmative consent, and you should never feel pressured to have sex with somebody. This isn't about an individual. This is not saying you have to have sex with a trans woman or you're cis-sexist. It's saying that you should examine the societal influences on your preferences. There's a massive difference between honing in on individual scenarios and considering wider societal issues and attitudes.
This is not a society issue. This is a biological issue. I'm actually a fan of the idea of replacing the man and woman symbol from bathrooms and just putting a penis and a vagina. End of conversation. Then you just go to the bathroom that has your genitals and period. It's very simple. The bathrooms are even adapted to the genitals that you have. Because in the end of the day, that's the separation that exists in bathrooms. Is a separation by sexual organ. It shouldn't be that hard. A penis has that bathroom, a vagina has that bathroom. When you complicate things in the way that you and people like yourself, Riley, try to complicate it, we can decomplicate them very easily. Do you want that? Do you want the symbol in the bathroom to be a penis and a vagina? We can do that.
Number 3, I'm allowed to have my preferences. Technically, you're right. You're allowed to have your preferences and you don't have to change anything. But there's more to it than that, and ignoring the deeper issues by stopping at a surface level analysis doesn't do this issue any justice. Like, you're allowed to have a lot of things. You're allowed to have prejudice towards trans people, but that doesn't mean you should. So if we look a little deeper into this issue, there's the possibility of your genital preferences being at least somewhat partially informed by growing up in a cis-sexist society.
No, my preferences are influenced by my biology. I'm a man, and my genes are normal, so I'm attracted to women. Because that's the reality of my biology. I don't even need to think about what I'm attracted with. It's not something that society could influence me. Because it's already written in my genetic code. It's genetics, Riley.
There's also the fact that a preference is different than saying you would never do something. Like, having a preference for tall girls is fine, but refusing to date anyone under 5'7" is ridiculous. And obviously that's not a perfect analogy because short girls as a group don't face the societal marginalization that trans women do. But I'm interested in having a conversation about labels and implicit bias and trans-inclusive language. Simply saying, it's my preference, end of discussion, is a good way of sidelining all of those issues and instead centering the feelings of cis people in a discussion that's about trans people.
That's a terrible analogy because somebody that is tall or short is something that you gain preference, but it does not affect your reproductive ability and the way you reproduce. And the gender that you reproduce with. But when we are talking about a fake woman with a penis, that's completely different. That's something that you're not attracted with, and that's nothing about society. That's already, again, encoded in your genes, in your sexual preference. Your sexual preference of heterosexuality, homosexuality. Simple.
Number 4, I have a trans friend who says this is okay. People love their tokens. I've done an entire video on moral licensing and why this is a terrible defense, but in summary, you'll always be able to find trans people to back up your cis-sexist views. You'll always be able to find gay people who spout anti-gay rhetoric. You can even find people of color who openly advocate racist policies. That doesn't make you...
No, when trans people, homosexual people, and black people start telling the truth and start saying things that don't go with your narrative, you just call them token. It's like an insult to you people find to take the legitimacy of their opinions. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that you cannot stand their opinion, and so you use those names to try to take down those people. Those people that are sane, Riley. Those people that do not espouse your bullshit, Riley.
Having a trans friend doesn't mean you're suddenly an expert on trans issues. People often internalize negative ideas about their own identities and regurgitate them with passion. I've met gay men who told me that their homosexuality was a sin and that their punishment was to be celibate for their entire lives. And even still, they'd probably go to hell. Obviously, that would be anti-gay for any straight person to say, and it's also not okay for gay people to advocate that. In the same way, if trans people are saying cis-sexist garbage, it's still cis-sexist garbage. And look, there are cis people who are on my side as well, so if you think it's okay to point to your token trans friend, then I can just point to my token cis friend.
We don't need to point to token anything, we just need to point better arguments than you, and to reality. Reality itself is enough, Riley, because it's not on your side. And by the way, nice straw man trying to make, everybody that disagrees with you look bad by giving like arguments that actually most of the people that disagree with you will never make. But you use a straw man to make everybody that you call a token look bad.
Number 5, I'm triggered by penises because of past sexual trauma. That's completely understandable. I've never said that anyone should have to have sex with someone with a penis if they don't want to. If intimacy with someone who has a penis is triggering for you, I would never suggest that you have to do that.
This point is retarded, so I'm going to skip it.
So that is all of the typical responses I could think of. The first 2 responses in particular come from TERF, radfem, and gender-critical ideologies, which are all proudly anti-trans. Even if you don't consider yourself a part of those movements, you're siding with them when you use their arguments. Their entire platform is cis-sexist, and their arguments reflect
Not cis, normal. Not cis, reality. Now, those are not the only also arguments that you could think of, because I'm sure that if you scroll down your comment section, you will find tons of better arguments than those. Those are strawmans that you thought were easy to debunk, but you still failed to debunk those.
So even if you say you believe trans women are women, it doesn't do a whole lot of good if you're still completely siding with folks who don't believe that trans women are women.
Again, if you haven't done the transitional therapy, so no hormonal treatment, no any operation on the body, then you are not a trans woman. It's not that trans women are not women. It's that you are not trans woman.
Last thing I want to say about this is that if you'd rather not have sex with a woman who has a penis, maybe just don't make such a huge deal of it. Trans women are often afraid of not being found attractive or desirable after coming out, and you're not helping. If you really want to be an ally to trans people, you could just not talk about it.
People talk about it because people like yourself continue to spout bullshit, trying to push these things onto people. Let trans people live their lives in peace. You're not transsexual, Riley. You're not trans. Again, trans people suffer from gender dysphoria. They're diagnosed, they do the treatments, they become the sex that they want to become. End of conversation. There's no cis-normativity and there's no non-binary.
And by that, I'm not trying to censor you, okay? So don't pretend this is censorship. You have the freedom to say whatever you want. I'm just asking you to consider if it's necessary to say those things when they reflect harmful or violent rhetoric. Because if you have an opinion that you know is only going to make people feel bad about themselves, why constantly share it with the world? It's fine to not find people attractive, but it's mean to constantly yell about how unattractive you find those people, especially when those people are oppressed. For another imperfect analogy, it'd be like if you weren't attracted to girls with short hair. That would be fine, but you probably wouldn't write articles and make videos defending why it's okay for you to not like girls with short hair.
If girls with short hair would all be like demanding people to like them, and to be trying to make laws special to give them privileges, yeah, people would be bitching about and fighting back against girls with short hair. But they don't do that because it's just preferences. But because people like yourself and other crazy leftists are pushing this rhetoric, people are fighting back. And they should fight back, especially when we have reality at stake. And we cannot let reality go away. Riley, I'm sorry. If you people stop pushing this agenda, people will stop fighting back. It's that simple. So I hope I demystify this idiotic thing that a man with long hair is a lesbian. If you like this video, share it, leave a like, let me hear your opinion. In the end of the day, stay fluffy.